Nothing is easier than to denounce the evildoer. Nothing is more difficult than to understand him. This quote by Fyodor Dostoevsky is so apropos to the discord and polarization that characterizes our current political climate. Many on all sides disrespect and even hate each other. In that light, it might behoove us to explore and discuss the nature of beliefs themselves, because our beliefs can lead to violence and polarization. Now, it is one thing when our beliefs conflict with the beliefs of others, but what happens when our beliefs conflict with each other inside our own minds? This is the question that is the focus of this video, which is, what happens when new information conflicts with our current beliefs? This conflict is called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the discomfort we feel when we hold two or more conflicting beliefs at the same time. This conflict creates a tension or pressure that is very uncomfortable. We want to relieve this pressure, just as we want to drink when we are thirsty or eat when we are hungry. The greater the dissonance, the more the pressure. A classic example of cognitive dissonance would be the awareness that I am a smoker and that smoking causes cancer and heart disease. How to reconcile these two incompatible ideas? People tend to take the line of least resistance by reducing the discomfort of dissonance in the easiest way possible. This usually takes the form of rejecting, explaining away, or denying any new information that conflicts with their status quo beliefs. On the other hand, they could change their behavior or beliefs to make it consistent with the new information. But such a course is difficult, painful, and threatening, and so is less likely to occur. Changing behavior would entail admitting that they have been wrong, possibly for years and decades, causing them to look stupid and incompetent in the eyes of society. It might also require a change of behavior, which they find is too difficult to make. It would be so much easier and less painful just to reject the dissonant news in some way and adopt a belief that is compatible with the status quo. By and large, this is an unconscious process, but some research indicates that it is conscious as well. But whether the resolution process is conscious or unconscious, or somewhere in between, really doesn't matter. Ultimately, people fully believe in the rationalization and adopt it as their view. The dissident drive is much stronger in cases where self-image is involved. Generally speaking, human beings cannot tolerate any assault upon their ego or self-esteem and can become quite angry or violent if their fragile ego is threatened. If criticized, they behave as if their very survival is being threatened. Why? Most people crave self-importance, respect, and even love and adulation. They want to be seen as smart, strong, competent, and worthy. It is almost self-evident how this trait would develop in a prehistoric social hierarchy. If other members of an ancient tribe saw a member as stupid, ugly, lazy, or incompetent, he would have been regarded as a drag on the group, as a liability rather than as an asset. He might be reviled, shunned, and bullied. No one would have wanted to groom or mate with him. His survival would have been threatened without the group's social support. It would have been harder to find food and defend himself against predators. Thus, we learned long ago that rejection by the group is equivalent to social death and must be avoided at all costs. Few today have the courage moral fortitude, and self-confidence to stand up to that kind of social pressure. The upshot of this is that many of our beliefs are the result of unconscious processes that shape our beliefs in such a way that we don't look like losers or deplorables, at least in our own minds. We dare not question or challenge such beliefs in ourselves, lest we realize how inadequate we really are. It's like the movie A Few Good Men, where Jack Nicholson, in his role as a Marine Corps colonel, tells attorney Tom Cruise that you can't handle the truth. We as a species can't handle the truth, both about ourselves and many of our most cherished beliefs, opinions, and habits. The truth, if it threatens our ego and self-esteem, is perceived as leading to social death, and thus a threat to our survival, and we are programmed to survive. With all that in mind, let's look at several illustrative examples of cognitive dissonance and how it affects decision-making. To return to our earlier example, rather than quit cigarette smoking, which is hard and painful, a smoker might adopt any of the following rationalizations to keep on smoking.
Yeah, I smoke, but if I didn't, I know I'd gain weight. And so, what the heck? There's so many things out there that could kill us. Between microplastics and smoke from fires, and who knows what's going to happen with our world. There's a threat of an earthquake, and besides, we're all going to die at some point. So I'd rather live my life as I feel and smoke if I want and die young if I have to.
Yeah, I'm a smoker. I've heard that it's bad for you, but I think it's just something that something that's bad for you. If I've been smoking for 20 years and I feel fine. So I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to go out and have a cigarette after this. So join me if you want.
I don't believe the doctors. The chances of my health suffering are not as serious as they make out. It's just what they said about COVID and masking and vaccines. I just don't buy it.
Oh, I'm planning to quit later. I've just got too much going on, and I can't worry about it right now. But I'll get around to it when things settle down.
Here's another example. Example 2. A woman who supports a political candidate learns that the candidate has done something immoral and probably illegal. She feels disappointed and betrayed by her idol. She might cope with this by changing her opinion of the man and withdrawing her support, but that would be hard for the following reasons. She had been a rabid fan of his for years and even donated considerable money to his cause. All her friends were supporters as well. In fact, her whole social life was based on the support and admiration of this political figure. No, it would be much easier to adopt any of the following rationalizations.
My candidate denies the charges, and I have no proof positive to disbelieve him. But even if he did do it, he's still way better than the other side, so I will continue to support him, warts and all.
A great man once said, for better or worse, people have been getting away with this for 1,000,000 years. All the politicians are corrupt and immoral. It's the way of the world. Grow up. It's not that big of a deal anyway.
It's inconsistent and unfair because the other side did the same thing and was not maligned. That shows how corrupt the system really is. So I don't trust it to provide unbiased information.
This is a false accusation that is politically motivated. It's the deep state and corrupt media conspiring to destroy our champion. He's the only one who stands up to fight for our values and way of life. If they take him down, they will come after me next.
Well, at the end of the day, I have to look out for me and my family. That's what it's about. So I vote for who I think is going to help me put food on the table, who's going to put money in my pocketbook. I don't care what they did before they entered Congress. It's what they do for me that counts.
Another example. You love and respect animals, and you want to be a vegetarian. And you don't want to see them suffer in feedlots and factory farms, but you also love to eat meat, and actually eat a lot of it. In fact, you eat more meat than most people. You love meat. You could change this behavior by becoming a vegetarian, but that would involve a lot of deprivation. And you just had purchased a $1,000 grill. So you tell yourself one of the following justifications to keep on eating meat.
It's better to be born and eaten than never to have been born at all. Those animals that I eat were bred to be eaten. If there was no market for their flesh, they would never have been born in the first place. At least they got to experience life for a few months or years. And that's better than complete non-existence in the first place.
People have been eating meat since the time of the cavemen, and even chimpanzees eat meat occasionally, if they can find it. It's the natural order of things. Next, you'll be asking me to chant Hare Krishna and start meditating. Manly men don't eat broccoli and tofu.
I mean, if we're talking about giving up meat, I can't. I like it. It tastes so good. Like, you bite in, it's chewy, it's juicy, it's got all the flavor. Vegetables do not have that.
Animals don't suffer, and they don't have a soul either. In the Bible, it says in Genesis 1, verses 26 to 31, and God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God made animals for men to do with as they please, and I know this because the Bible told me so.
In this video so far, we have explained the concept of cognitive dissonance and given some theoretical examples. Next, we will explore one of the classic experiments that demonstrate how cognitive dissonance works and why it matters. We will also discuss some of the factors that influence the intensity and direction of cognitive dissonance, such as the level of commitment, the degree of freedom, personal responsibility, and the social context. Finally, we will offer some tips on how to cope with cognitive dissonance in a constructive and healthy way. The concept of cognitive dissonance was first proposed by Leon Festinger in 1957, who defined it as the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude change. Festinger argued that people have a natural tendency to seek harmony and consistency among their cognitions, and when they encounter a discrepancy, they feel a motivational force to reduce or resolve it. The greater the inconsistency we face, the more agitated we will be, and the more motivated we will be to reduce it. Festinger's insistence that cognitive dissonance was like a drive that needed to be reduced implied that people were going to have to find some way of resolving their inconsistencies. People do not just prefer eating over starving. We are driven to eat. Similarly, people who are in the throes of inconsistency in their social life are driven to resolve that inconsistency. How we go about dealing with our inconsistency can be rather ingenious. But in Festinger's view, there is little question that it will be done. An article that appeared in a Minneapolis newspaper gave Festinger and his students an ideal opportunity to study inconsistency in a real-world setting. The article reported on a group of West Coast residents who were united in a belief about a significant event, the belief that the earth was going to be annihilated by a cataclysmic flood on December 21st, 1955. All the people would perish in the cataclysm, except for those who believe in the prophecies emanating from the planet Clarion. They alone would be saved from the flood. Festinger reasoned that if Earth survived December 21st, then the people in the little group, dubbed the Seekers by Festinger, would face a considerable amount of inconsistency the next morning. While the rest of the world awoke to just another day, the seekers would face a calamitous amount of inconsistency. The world's very existence would be inconsistent with their belief that the world as we know it was to have ended on the previous evening. The seekers was a serious group. This was not a collection of individuals who had a mild premonition of the world's demise. Their beliefs were specific and strong. As the December day approached, seekers members sold their possessions and quit their jobs. Some, whose spouses did not share their beliefs, divorced. The seekers members were united in their support of their leader, Mrs. Marion Quiche, who believed she was the medium through whom the unearthly beings on the planet Clarion communicated their wishes. She received her messages through automatic writing, a paranormal belief that a person's hand is seized by the spirits in another world and is used to communicate messages from the great beyond. Planet Clarion was specific. The group was to gather at Mrs. Quiche's home on the evening of December 20th. They were to await the arrival of a spaceship that would come to Earth and whisk them away from danger. The seekers were not publicity hounds. They sought no attention for their beliefs or their prophecy. When the reporter whose story appeared in the Minneapolis newspaper attempted to interview them, they grudgingly gave only the briefest interview. Publicity was not their goal. Protecting themselves from the cataclysmic end of the earth was. As a social psychologist, Festinger saw the immediate relevance to the theory he was generating. If people are driven to deal with inconsistency, how would Marion Quiche and her followers react the morning of December 21st when the sun rose, the sky brightened, and the spaceship from Clarion failed to appear? The clear and specific anticipation of the world's demise, the elaborate preparations for the group to be saved, the broken marriages and other personal sacrifices, all would stand in stark contrast to the world's having made just another daily turn around and on its axis. Festinger and his colleagues predicted that the dramatic inconsistency would create the state of cognitive dissonance, and the group would be driven to find some way to reduce it. They would need to find some way of restoring consistency to their mental maps of the cosmic events. One of the researchers infiltrated the group. He carefully observed the group's preparations and specifically observed the events as they unfolded just after midnight on December 20th. The group gathered near midnight, waiting for the arrival of the spacecraft. Tension and excitement were high. They had followed Planet Clarion's instructions meticulously. Mrs. Quiche's grandfather clock ticked the final seconds to midnight. No spacecraft materialized. Someone in the group checked his watch and saw that his watch still read only 11:55. All watches were reset. At 12:05, even by the ticking of the newly set watches, there was still no spacecraft. Another member of the group suddenly realized that he had not fulfilled all of the instructions given by the Clarions. The inhabitants of Clarion had insisted that all metal objects be removed from the human space travelers. Thus, they came with no zippers, belt buckles, or bra straps. But now a seeker realized that he had a metal filling in a tooth. He removed it. Still, no spacecraft. Then followed a terrible few hours following the midnight disconfirmation of the prophecy. People sobbed and wept. Had they been abandoned by the Clarions? Had they been wrong all along? Just like there are more cynical spouses and former friends that told them. Shortly past 4:00 a.m., Mrs. Quiche received her final message from Clarion. The message provided the answer to their questions and provided the opportunity to restore consistency between their doomsday beliefs and their observation that the spacecraft had not come and there had been no Earth-destroying cataclysm. A message shows the path. To restore consistency, the Clarion's final message was brilliant. Through Mrs. Quiche's trembling hand, it said, "This little group, sitting all night long, has spread so much goodness and light that the God of the universe spared the earth from destruction." So that was it. The belief had not been wrong after all. God had been planning to destroy the earth. All of the preparations for the cataclysm had not been made in vain. In fact, it was precisely and only because of the preparations, sacrifices, and faith of the group that the earth still existed on the morning of December 21st. The sun still shone because of them. People went to work because of them. People still had homes to return to and families to love. All because of the determination of the small group of seekers. Before December 21st, Festinger made a prediction. He hypothesized that the seekers who shun publicity and notoriety would take their cause to the public following the disconfirmation. And the seekers did that with gusto. As soon as their new belief was in place, as soon as they had generated the story that their actions had saved the world, they took their case to the public. They looked for social support for their story. They desperately wanted others to see that their actions had not been in vain, that their prophecy had not been disconfirmed, that there was no inconsistency between their belief in the cataclysm and the bright sunny day that dawned on December 21st. The premise of dissidence theory is that people do not tolerate inconsistency very well. The seekers had found a way, after the noon event, to make their actions feel consistent to themselves, and they now sought validation in having the world believe them. They printed flyers, called newspapers and magazines, offered a talk and radio programs, all in an effort to bolster their newfound consistency. There are probably many factors that influence the group of seekers in their actions. Who can guess what had initially influenced these individuals to believe in the prophecy and in the automatic writing? Who can guess what motives and interpretations individuals may have had in the wake of the disconfirmed prophecy? But one thing seems certain. Caught in a major inconsistency among their beliefs, behaviors, and observations of reality, the seekers did just what Festinger and his colleagues predicted they would do. They were driven to find a way to restore their consistency, driven to find a new belief that would make sense of what they had done, and driven to convince a skeptical world of the truth of their new position. Cognitive dissonance can have various effects on our behavior and decision-making. Sometimes it can lead to taking the high road in the form of positive changes, such as adopting healthier habits or being more open-minded. Examples of this would be to stop smoking rather than making excuses, or to realize that your favorite political candidate really did lose the election, in spite of his assertions to the contrary. But more frequently, it results in negative outcomes, such as clinging to irrational beliefs or resisting new information. Why is this? Because it is the line of least resistance, or the low-hanging fruit. People don't like to delay gratification or admit that they were wrong in some way. It is hard to take the high road. The high road involves some form of effort and pain. Jesus put it this way in the King James Version of Matthew 7:14. Wide is the gate, and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat, because strait is the gate, and narrow is the way, which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. So what can we do about it? How can we avoid having our thinking and beliefs being tainted by primitive, unconscious processes and vanity? Socrates is purported to have said, "An unexamined life is not worth living." And General John Stark said, "Live free or die." The implication is that if our thoughts, feelings, and behavior is determined by mechanical outside forces, and we are unaware of this and identify those thoughts, feelings, and behaviors as our own, then we are living a lie and stumbling about as if possessed and in a dream. The remedy for this is to challenge our own thinking by critical self-examination, especially when we are moved to voice our opinions and inflict them upon those in our own sphere of influence. We must ask both ourselves and other people questions such as, is this view motivated by some form of self-interest? Is ego or vanity coloring the opinion? Are we taking the quick and easy path here rather than doing the hard work required by the situation? Can I feel or sense some form of dissonance at play here? How do I know if this belief is true? What is the evidence for and against the belief? How credible is the evidence? We need to realize that our species has only recently emerged from the caves and the trees, and our thinking is still very much colored by our primate evolutionary history. That means that our views and decisions are subject to inherent errors in cognitive processing, the legacy of our primate past. But not to worry, the antidote to our cognitive blindness is awareness of the biases and errors themselves. Awareness enables us to recognize these errors when they occur, to challenge them and take countermeasures. To learn more about these inherent defects in our thinking and how to compensate for them, check out some of our other videos in the series. Over the course of these 4 sessions, I'm aware that people have expressed disagreement, discontent. If you have such dissatisfaction, let's hear about it. Now is the time to come forward and express whatever views you have that you find in disagreement with what you have heard on these lectures. So come forward now, because this is your one and only chance. You gotta be kidding.
You're too hard on non-human primates? I'm not sure you can lay the blame for this error in cognitive processing entirely upon your simian relatives. Have you considered that cognitive distortions and the phenomena of cognitive dissonance might have a positive survival value? Optimism might be the result of cognitive dissonance, or religion, or ethical behavior. Just a thought.
By the way, several species of monkeys exhibit signs of ethical behavior. Very few murders, clear respect and organization around complex social dominance hierarchies.
It may be that cognitive dissonance is an inherent artifact of any sentient biological-based information processing system. It may be inescapable because of the limitations of attention and the way memories are input, stored and recalled. For example, I believe that my parents can do no wrong, and then I grew up and dealt with my discoveries about life, and some strongly contradicted what my parents believed. Whether I'm a human or a gorilla, I'm going to develop concepts, beliefs, and expectations about how the world works. Some of those concepts will work for me most or all the time. Others will be off base and lead to confusion and wrong conclusions. One way to cope is to rationalize and not change my belief. The difference between the monkey and the human is that the human can be self-reflective and come to recognize an instance of cognitive dissonance as you would a superstition, and then make an adjustment in how to think and respond.
When applied to addictions, cognitive dissonance can be used to explain rationalizations and continued use, but that's just one of the mechanisms of a multi-determined phenomenon. For example, fatigue, stress, anger, or a variety of other emotions lead to a stronger acceptance of the rationalization.
How ironic. The evidence that you all have so brilliantly presented is dissonant with my indictment of primate ancestry being the root cause of cognitive dissonance. I now find myself in the same boat as the smoker and would-be vegetarian that I presented in my earlier examples. And double irony. Rather than appearing to be a hypocrite by rejecting or rationalizing away the evidence you presented, I must now struggle to take the high road by somehow integrating your excellent points with this presentation. But isn't that the nature of science itself? Our initial hypotheses must be continually modified in the face of new evidence. If it didn't, we would still be bloodletting and using mercury as a laxative. In that light, please allow me to end on this integrative note. It really doesn't matter whether cognitive dissonance can be blamed on our primate ancestry or is inherent to any form of biological consciousness or artificial intelligence. What matters is that we can recognize it in ourselves and others, and in that recognition, take steps to avoid it. Cognitive dissonance may have the potential to be beneficial, as when, as our chimpanzee friend suggested, it produces optimism or ethical behavior. But it definitely has a high potential to cause rigidity, bias, and destructive beliefs not rooted in reality. Hopefully, this video will help you to recognize it in the future, especially in yourselves, and react by taking a better path.